On this video, we sort out the bodywork, panel gap sorted, toolbox with the rubber, brackets to the leg shields, the air ride system. We fit the footboards down to the frame. Let's get into the video. I'm going to start finalising a few things on the Slambretta build, and before I move on to another job, there's lots of things that still need doing. I just want to backtrack a little bit and have a look at these links. If you remember, I had these super cool 3D printed links made. I've never actually fitted them just to test they're okay before I send off the designs to be machined in metal. So I think I might pull off the mudguard and horn cover, just whip off these crazy temporary links I made some time ago and just offer up these at least, just see if we need to make any amendments before commissioning some machine parts in metal. So this part of these links I built is actually from the original Slambretta links. So these are standard bushes. They've got these kind of cup washer things that go on either side, and that whole thing goes into the forks. So I'm just going to pull out these bushes. So here's a moment of truth. The metal part should fit in again, because obviously that's just going in the same. They definitely fit, and super tight fit. Not going to lie, that was pretty tight getting it into position there, but it has gone on. Just a couple of things that I've spotted. The little knobbly bit which locates the hub, that's working really well, but it might just need to be maybe 1 mil thicker, because a little bit of play there. And also I can barely get a nut on here because these links are super thick. I either need to get a longer spindle or reduce the thickness just where these bolt up. Yeah, pleased so far. I'm just going to chuck on the shock just to make sure there's no issues with that shock either. I don't see why that wouldn't fit. So getting in really close with these links, like I say, that was a fairly tight fit, but I kind of like the fact that that's tight. Standard spindle probably doesn't stick out quite enough for my liking. So I could just reduce the thickness of it here. And the only other one issue I can see is the bottom part of the shock here is just touching this little bit that sticks out. And I think all we need to do is do a chamfered edge. If these had been made in metal, I would have just taken a grinder and just given it a chamfer myself, but we might as well try and get it right. I'm really pleased with those. Now I've confirmed these few slight adjustments that are needed on these links. I'm going to pull those back off. I'm not sure how much pressure, load, weight, whatever these 3D printed links could take. And tomorrow I'm taking the Slambretta over to Steve Rowe's house. You may notice that the forks are missing on the Slambretta, and that is because they are away with Steve, who is making some slugs, if that's the right word, technical term, where I shorten the forks. They need some reinforcement to go inside the tubes of the forks, if you like. So he's machining those up for me. That means I can, finally fit them hopefully for the last time once they come back. So excited to get those back and see how they look. The Slambretta is looking a bit naked because in this episode I want to start fitting the panel work kind of in its final position, but we have some issues. If you remember, this scooter is actually a Series 2 frame. I'm assuming the leg shields are Series 2, but we are fitting this super cheap Series 1 conversion. That is going to offer a couple of problems. Apparently the Series 1 frame has brackets in a slightly different place to the Series 2 frame. But before we even get into the Series 1, Series 2 things that need to be looked at, this pair of leg shields hasn't even got brackets from there to the frame, so I need to make those brackets. Also, it's got this chrome ring. Assuming these leg shields, I'm not sure if they make a difference with a chrome ring, but I certainly believe that the headset does, And so I'm not sure whether this headset is designed to go with a chrome ring or to go with a frame without a chrome ring. This is where these Slambretta experts out there are going to start shouting at the screen. I've never claimed to be a Slambretta expert. I can obviously take that chrome ring off, but does that then affect the forks, blah blah blah. It's just a whole series of things I'm worrying myself too much about. But as far as I know, if the headset is the type that doesn't go with a chrome ring, I think it's a longer headset, if you like, so it takes up the gap where the chrome ring was, if that makes sense. So I think whatever happens, these leg shields need to be tight up to the chrome ring. So when I make these brackets, yeah, I'll weld those on in a position where those leg shields are tight to that, and then we'll worry about the headset when we get the forks back and we can see where the headset fits. So it might be that we take the chrome ring off, I don't know. Does any of that make sense? At the end of the day, I just need to start somewhere. Once the leg shields are kind of in the right place, we can have a look at, you know, mounting that on there. And that is another can of worms, because I obviously cut off the bits where the horn cover here mounts to the mud guard. So yeah, that's another issue I have to look at. Started making up a couple of simple brackets here, and they are going to go somewhere like that. We weld them to the leg shields first, then mark the holes. I want to pull the leg shields off, and of course all the air ride system's in the way. 4 bolts and the whole thing I'm just going to pull out and just get that out of the way. Just clamp that in place there. Gonna just tack those on each side, and these holes are kind of worked out quite well because I can plug weld there, and obviously there's loads of different holes in these leg shields, but I can plug weld from the back there and even on the inside. See all these different holes. I mean, there's so many holes in these leg shields, but that allows me to get a couple of plug welds in there, and I can get rid of the holes at the same time. This is getting slightly ridiculous. I've said many times these leg shields are absolutely battered, and this bracket kind of fitted on the angle quite well, but this one, the angle of this inside bit was so far off that this kicked out massively, so I've had to put 2 huge clamps just to get that anywhere near. I don't know, they look slightly wonky, but when you take measurements, it's about right. It's close enough, I think. Anyway, I've got plenty of room to adjust this. Believe it or not, these things were an absolute nightmare. The more I was welding, the more holes I was blowing in these leg shields. Anyway, they're on there. There's loads of welds. They're not going anywhere. And yeah, you can see here there's some really thin places here on the leg shields, but I have welded up all those holes, plug welded them in, so these are rock solid. This obviously is never going to be seen because the horn cover is going to hide all that, and I think these mount from behind, so I don't even know, but that looks about right to me. Just in case this needs to be in front of these holes, I think I'm just going to drill a couple of holes and I'll try and squeeze a bolt through, so that'll allow me then to bring this in front if I need to move this out. I struggled trying to get a nut behind there and screw these on, but there was no way that was happening, so I have welded on a nut, and yeah, that's tightened up into position. Got it fairly close to this ring, and I'm just gonna screw that on now as well. This is the sort of thing I'm facing. Got one screw in that side, and guess what? Yeah, this one just will not go in there. You can see So, I mean, the leg shields are battered, but also this horn cover thing's battered as well. Basically, this thing is fighting me at every chance. Managed to get these screws in. Screws are way too long, but it's pretty firm there. And what I like about it is, yeah, it's nice and tight under that chrome ring. There's nothing fixing it at the bottom though, so it's flapping around. I still don't know quite what I'm going to do here at the bottom. I need to just get on with this. And that's taken me way too long. Put a couple of screws down for this leg shield. I'm just going to tighten a couple of those down. So you can see it's kind of even that way by putting those screws in. But I tighten those down, then I can actually mark here into my new frame 3 holes to drill on either side. Got the holes marked and drilled for just a small little hole, pilot hole. And I've just used these self tappers just to hold it down for now. I'm sort of running out of hardware actually, and also I don't want to make the holes too big, just so I can adjust them if I need to. But that's holding them in place, which will now allow me to do the same kind of thing with footboards. So we have got a couple of the existing holes here, but I can get the panel gap right there. I'll put the panel on as well, and I may just have to notch the footboards here. Just saw me making some clearance around here, and that allows this to sit about flush on there, which is nice. Sort of tight panel gap. I'm just going to drill those holes there, one at the front, one at the back, and that piece will be then in the right position. All fixed down. Really happy actually how that's come out. Great gap there. Looks pretty good. What I have noticed actually is that, yeah, there's a little bit missing here on the original. I think this bit comes out a bit more, so I need to weld on a little tab or bracket there just to pick up that hole. But I want to crack on and get the other footboard done. We're on the passenger side footboard, and I did remember there was an issue here, and I couldn't remember what it was, but with this engine up raised so high, the footboard is hitting the exhaust. Now I do appreciate that might not be the final exhaust position, but I think whatever exhaust I run, I'm going to have this issue. See, it's about an inch or even maybe more, 30 mil off there. So I think what I'm going to do is just trim this. Might as well come all the way along just to make it nice and neat. These things kind of, it slopes down anyway, so I'm not sure what the point of all that extra metal is there, but maybe it's just to stop dirt flicking up onto the engine. But plenty of people obviously run without even these footboards and stuff, so I don't think there's an issue. I'm just going to mark a nice neat line and we'll cut this bit out. Fits up pretty nicely actually. Nice little gap there. I mean, the existing holes aren't perfect, but they're close enough. Might have to drill them out slightly. And then by this end actually fits up really nicely. So I can just do a simple hole in there, and then obviously I need to extend that out again, same as on the other side. Pretty happy with the panel gap that way, that's pretty good. This one does get a bit tighter, actually not too bad, It's a little bit tight there, I just need to keep an eye on that. Might have to adjust that slightly. And I think it might just be touching there as well. But anyway, it's pretty good. It's taken quite a while to get to this stage with these body panels, and I know it doesn't look probably a lot different from what you've seen before because all these panels were thrown on, but everything was really ill-fitting and everything was loose. Whereas now, it's all, I mean, you know, temporarily bolted down, but all the panel gaps are actually really good. Really pleased with that. And it does mean that I can fit the mudguard properly, although I don't want to do that just yet. And the other thing is, what I want to do is get this toolbox fitted on. I know we kind of roughly fitted it in a previous episode, but the air ride system has changed a bit now. The air tank's different. I think I may have to cut a hole in the bottom to accept that slightly longer air tank, and also the position may have moved slightly. But the other big issue is, I'll bring you in, it's actually fixing this toolbox after the air ride system's in place. So let's have a look at that. This air ride system's actually going to be stuffed into this toolbox. And if you remember the toolbox fixings, which is fairly standard, it's got 2 fixings at the top, 2 at the bottom. Obviously with a nice empty toolbox, there's no problem with those fixings, but once the air ride's in there, I mean, yeah, the top ones I can probably get to, but there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to get to the bottom fixings in there and try and do them up. This change of air tank, I said it was a bit longer, and you can see where the toolbox was. It was right up there, and we're about 20 mil down, and that is because this tap here, which is a drain tap, so if you get any water build up in a tank, you can release that, and that is sticking down where you can see. So what I'm going to do, and I always did plan to do this, I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of the toolbox, and this will kind of stick through a little bit, but obviously when I come to drain the water from the tank, I'll actually have access to that without it draining into the toolbox, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's get this drilled, this hole, so we can fit this back into the position there. So I did open another can of worms with this blooming toolbox. And you might notice here I've spun this bracket around. I'll bring you in for a closer look. Yeah, I cut this bracket completely off. The bottom end of the tank was actually sticking out and it wouldn't allow the toolbox to sit flush. Also, this thing was being a bit of a problem, sticking out. So I cut that off completely. I've spun that whole thing around. That's tucked away nicely there. I've offered up the toolbox. Everything's pretty good. This is kind of really close here. If you see, I'll put a bit of cardboard behind it as well, just so we got, you know, a few mil there before it sort of touches any paintwork. The issue we've got slightly now is where that tap is, that's moved a little bit. So of course the hole I drilled is not quite in the right place, but I can just elongate that. I could do with probably a bigger hole anyway, because it was difficult to get my fingers through the hole to switch that tap on and off. Yeah, you can see down the side there, pretty good gap. It's all tucked in there nicely. I mean, it is tight, but just spent way too long fitting the rubber on this toolbox just to give me a better idea what's happening. And just offer it up there, just gonna use my knee to hold it in place. It actually fits really well around there, but I've got gaps here. I'm not sure if this is usual. If there's other people out there that have fitted these things, I mean, I didn't do the best job with this rubber, but it just doesn't fit around these tight contours. I mean, that's basically a 90-degree angle. There's no way in the world this rubber's going to go around a 90-degree angle and then fit around every contour around here as well, even this little contour there. So I've got a little bit of a gap. Obviously when I bolt it on or when it's fixed, it'll pull it in tight, but It is what it is. All this toolbox is doing is covering up my air ride, so it's not like if a few drops of water get in there, it's not going to do any harm to this lot. And in fact, I mean, this thing gets red hot, this compressor, so a little bit of air circulation I don't think is going to harm anything. And this is going to fit in there pretty well. As usual, I've been overthinking the fixing of this toolbox and coming up with these crazy engineering ideas and hinges and quick release fixings, blah 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 blah. But I think I'm just going to try and keep it simple, so this is what I've come up with. So the toolbox itself came with these fixing points here. I'll never get to these bottom mounting places because of all the air ride system. But I don't know what this is from, it's been cut off something, but I think what I'm going to do is weld those to here. I've got 2 of them, and they'll just stick down below the toolbox, and then that will then give me my fixing there. And funnily enough, there's already 2 holes there, so it's not as though there weren't any fixings there anyway. Weld that fixing so it sticks out just below the toolbox. You'll never see it from above. And I can weld a nut on the other side on the front of the leg shields there, and that'll be an easy fixing then just to take out. And then at the top I'll probably stick with the original fixings at the top, and I can just weld a stud through the leg shields, have a nut on this side and just use a socket, and that'll be really easy then just to remove that toolbox with sort of easily accessible fixings. So I just want to thank you all for watching. Actually got quite a lot done, although it doesn't look a lot different to what you've seen before. Super pleased with those panel gaps, the rubber on the toolbox, that air ride stuffed inside, the bracket on the leg shields, getting those footboards sorted out and fixed down to the custom frame I built. Thank you for watching. Give us a like, leave us a comment. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget, we have these super cool Slambretta t-shirts available. I'll put a link below, and yeah, we're getting a new order of those in, so we'll have all the sizes back in stock soon. Okay, thank you very much and see you on the next one. Cheers.